Slow down.
This podcast is a member of the Place to Be Nation family. Visit us at placetobenation.com, the only place to be in your pop culture world.
Place to Be Nation Wrestling Network. We are back. That's right. For the first time in the year 2025, Who's Next is coming to you live in your very ear holes. Is that the right word to say? You're listening to us through your preferred podcasting app, device, what have you, maybe even on the YouTube channel. But we are back for our first episode here of the year. It's been a little while. We're here to recap and preview what's going on in the world of the WWE brand of NXT. And the we, of course, as always, is me, Andy Atherton, and my co-host, Logan Crosland. Logan, so glad to be back with you. I know we're almost 6 weeks into 2025 with our first show, but, you know, it's always great to be back here with you.
Well, I hear the revolution is televised, so maybe it's podcasticized as well, so, but we'll get into it.
Yes, podcasticize. I think we're going to credit that Logan Crosland 2025. We're going to podcasticize your ass. Yeah, was it Logan 316 said, I just podcasticized you. I think you might need a procedure to undo that, but okay, anyway. So it's been an exciting time for NXT, actually. This an exciting time in WWE overall. We've had the Netflix Raw Netflix launch. We've had some shakeups in the roster and you know, releases with some debuts, some returns. There's a lot going on. We're going to of course, on this show we focus on the NXT brand, but we're going to start off talking about the Royal Rumble, which just occurred, because there was an NXT presence at the Royal Rumble. So we're going to kind of give our thoughts on how these performers performed, and as well as any omissions that we thought people from the NXT brand we thought could show up in the men's or women's Rumble. So, Logan, overall, let's start with the women's Rumble. What did you think of this year's women's Rumble?
I definitely thought it kind of built towards the end. I feel like at certain points in the women's Rumble, it kind of got a little crowded in there. I feel like we were talking about it in our group chat that we're all in throughout, that we kept saying, like, you know, the ring's filling up, here comes the person to clear house, here comes the person to clear house, and it like just never kept happening. So yeah, I think once they kind of got towards the end and it kind of built towards the end and all that, I think it worked out pretty well. Obviously, one of our NXT girls had probably the best performance of the night, breaking the longevity record and actually being the runner-up. So I thought it kind of built well towards the end, but it kind of got a little cluttered throughout, because I just felt like it never, that like big like clear out in the middle just never happened, and it just, you know, it kept filling up and stuff like that. But definitely maybe not the best women's Rumble, but I'd say it was pretty good at the same time.
Yeah, I agree. It was a fun one. There were some creative eliminations in it. We had that one big elimination. Yeah. That happened, like 4 or 5 girls got knocked out at the same time. I thought, you know, they all killed it. I mean, obviously, it was pretty much a foregone conclusion Charlotte was going to win, which, you know, I'm okay. I'm kind of indifferent on that. Like Charlotte she just needs to stay a heel. She can't be a face. It's like she can't be a face. Becky can't be a heel. It's just like, let's just say what it is, leave it as it is. She's so great. People love to boo her, love to hate her. They'll still cheer her. You know, our good friend Jenny has a crush on her, and you know, I thought it was fun though. I don't, you know, that's the thing. We'll talk about the difference when we get to the men's Rumble, but it was like kind of like, you know, you get down towards the end, it's like, as much as we love Roxanne and quite possibly there is a Royal Rumble win for her in the future. I mean, she's still young. She's still technically an NXT wrestler. She's not officially moved up, although that is coming before long. I think it'll come right after Vengeance Day. I think she'll be officially moved up. Yeah. But no, I thought she killed it. Yeah, so you know, we talked about her. She was tremendous in the Rumble, and you know, set the longevity record, which had already been broken at least 3 times in the last like 2 years or something like that. But you know, there were from my count, 4 other NXT women in this Rumble, which, the Women's Rumble, obviously, there's more spots available because there's not as many women on the main roster. You do leave some for some legends coming in. Maybe some people could be returning. We got Trish Stratus had a spot. We had Alexa Bliss. We had Nikki Bella, who rumors are that she may be returning full time. So the other ones from NXT, though, was Lash Legend, which somewhat of a surprise. What did you think of Lash in the Rumble?
Well, I mean, yeah, her and Jakara have gotten a few women's tag team title shots, so I wasn't super surprised by her. They seem to be pretty behind her in the grand scheme of things. I'm interested to see what they kind of do with them because, like I said, I feel like they have gotten quite a few shots on the main roster for the tag team titles. So I'm interested to see if they'll kind of keep them together because I think if they do that, they need to go up and kind of compete with those girls up on the main roster. But if there's a split maybe possibly happening between them two at some point, I think Lash could probably benefit from maybe being one of the top heels on NXT instead of going up to the main roster and getting lost in the shuffle, like something like that. But if they're going to stay a team, I don't think they have too much more to accomplish in NXT per se. But like I said, I think Lash could really benefit from a singles run by herself.
Maybe they also need a bigger, more statuesque girl because Jade is still out. So that kind of maybe she took Jade, what would have been Jade's spot in the Rumble.
That's true. Possibly. That could be a possibility.
This one though, I think was a complete surprise, and not that she didn't deserve it. Just she wouldn't have been if you would have said, "Hey, there's going to be 5 NXT women in the Rumble." She probably would not have been on my list of 5, which was Jada Parker, and I thought she performed well. I mean, she's one of those. She just continues to get better. I think she needs a little bit more character work down in NXT, but it was a nice surprise this year. What are your feelings on Jada?
I was definitely surprised when she came out. Like we'll talk about. I think there were a few that maybe I would have thought that would be in there before, but like you said, she performed well. She's definitely a star on the rise. She definitely seems to be one of the definite like high future talent prospects in NXT. So. I think she's not a bad choice, but yeah, definitely seemed maybe a year early, I would say, for something like that. But she did perform well, so it was a good spot.
All right, and then we also now these other 2 women, not a surprise. Julia, the NXT Women's Champion, which has been, kind of a thing that's been in there the last couple of years. We've had the NXT Women's Champion. I thought she was great. She's somebody. I don't think she's going to be in NXT that long. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, maybe a year or so. I think she's just there to kind of get used to the WWE style. Work on her English, but not that that's a bad thing for her. I think NXT is a good place to bring people along slowly, and kind of. For some, as we'll talk about, rehab them, I guess, from their image from other promotions or what you may think. So, how do you think Julia did in the Rumble?
My only gripe with her, she came out pretty late. I want to say she was either like 29 or 28 or one of the later numbers. So I would have liked to have seen her in there for a little bit longer. But for when she was in there, I think she did pretty well. So I can't complain of her performance, but like I said, I think she got caught up in that elimination where 6 or 7 people went out at once. So I would have just liked to have seen her in there a little bit longer, but she performed well while she was in there.
Yeah, it might have been fun to have her earlier where there's only a couple of women in there to kind of really have her show her strong style off in front of the big crowd in Indianapolis. I think that would have been really great for her. But, look, again, another person that's got a lot of Rumbles in their future. So, and then lastly, this wasn't a surprise because she's basically I guess if Julia's your 1A, this is your 1B right now in terms of star power down in NXT, which is Stephanie Vaquer. She did a tremendous job. She was part of that big elimination as well, which I think also protects those girls somewhat because Bianca was in that. It was a whole big mess of
it was like Liv and a bunch of people. Yeah.
Raquel, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So So how'd Stephanie do? Because she got a pretty big ovation as well.
Yeah, she got a pretty big pop. I was kind of surprised. I mean, she's been on big stage. She's been on AEW pay-per-views, and obviously she's been on NXT for the last few months. So I'm not surprised she got a huge ovation because I think she's really good. But I definitely maybe wasn't expecting it from that Indianapolis crowd. But she got a pretty big pop. Again, she kind of came in a little later, but she did show out in her points when she was in. But again, I could have maybe enjoyed her coming out a little bit sooner, but it's how it is, I guess. But she like I said, for the little bit she was in there, she did pretty well.
Yeah, I like they had that little NXT main roster kind of showdown for a minute there, which was kind of fun, and they all beat up on, I think it was like Chelsea, right in the middle. So I think it was like Lash, Jada, Naomi, and the Bianca. Mm-hmm. Like all kind of there, about to square off, and then Chelsea gets in the middle and then gets the crap kicked out of her. Mm-hmm. so awesome. Yeah. So omissions though, that women that might have been in the Rumble, Fallon Henley, your current NXT North American Women's Champion. I was a little surprised. Like we said, like Jada was a little bit. I would have thought Fallon would have gotten that spot. But I don't know. What do you think? Do you think Fallon should have been in the Rumble? I mean, again, like whose spot would she have taken? I don't know, but
I'm not super surprised she wasn't in it. I could see him just doing it because she's one of the champions. Kind of feature that belt, feature the the champions of the brand or whatever you want to say. But she's probably not one that I would have been super surprised if they omitted her, because if you kind of include her, it would make sense to include JC and Jasmine, but so
maybe they could have come out with her, maybe did some chicanery or something.
They could have done that, but for her, I'm not super duper surprised, but I could have seen him doing it just because she's the North American champion, of course.
Yeah, Cora Jade could have been in it. I think, probably next year she'll probably be in it, I would think. I mean, maybe because she's still kind of, still back from her injury, not that long. Maybe they didn't want to put her in there. That could have been one of those things. Well, I think she would have done well. I mean, she's as long as she's kind of like Chelsea, like, she needs to stay away from the injury bug, and she'll be very successful. Mm-hmm. So we'll see what happens. Were you surprised, no Cora?
Yeah, she's probably the one that I would have thrown in there, maybe other than Jada. Just because she's a little bit more established, she's kind of higher on the card. Obviously involved with Roxanne, so they could have had them team up a little bit, throw some people out, something like that. So she would be the number out of the people we have listed. Obviously, I think she's the number one person that I would have probably thrown in there, maybe other than Jada. But like I said, Jada deserved the spot. It's just it would make more sense for me for maybe Cora to be in there just because she's a little higher on the card and is involved with Roxanne, who was in there for a long time.
Yeah, she's in the main event scene. Mm-hmm. So also, like, just throwing out there, Sol Ruka, I could have seen been in there just for like a spot to hit her finisher. Mm-hmm. Zarya, the new powerhouse down there. Mm-hmm. Kalani Jordan, who's been pushed quite a bit.
Yeah. Yeah, I could have seen Kalani or Soul getting in there just to hit some cool stuff because they're kind of some high flyers. So I definitely could have seen Soul getting in there and hitting a Soul Snatcher out of nowhere. But as much hype as I feel like Zarya came in with, I feel like she's kind of been tempered a little bit, a little more than obviously Stephanie and Julia. They're obviously in the top of the card, compete for titles and stuff like that. It seems like Zarya is just still kind of trying to find her footing. So not all that surprised she didn't make it.
Yeah, they overshadowed her a little bit because they were more well known coming in, I guess, and you can only they'll kind of cancel each other out if you have too many of these new women at the top. Yeah. So having her kind of be like a mid-carder right now and then eventually get back towards the main event scene. Obviously Jordan Grace was in it. I don't consider her an NXT wrestler, but she has appeared on NXT television and now she's fully signed. So she's going straight to like Raw or SmackDown, isn't that from what you understand?
I haven't heard really anything, honestly. Okay. So we'll see. I wouldn't list her here yet because she hadn't really debuted, quote unquote. But I haven't really heard where she'll kind of end up. I think she could probably benefit from being kind of the big fish in NXT at first, but if they go straight to the main roster, I wouldn't blame them there either.
All right. So on the men's side, we did not have any NXT men in the Rumble. I mean, look, you want to maybe, even though he's a TNA wrestler, Joe Hendry, because he's, again, like Jordan, he appeared in NXT, has done some programs in there. Mm-hmm. But were you surprised? I mean, we'll go through the list in a second of who, obviously you could probably guess like at least 2 or 3 of the names we're going to talk about. But I was surprised. I mean, look, this was a stacked men's Rumble. But actually, I didn't ask you, like, what were your thoughts on the men's Rumble? Because I thought it was excellent this year.
No, yeah, it was really good. Probably one of the better ones of all time, honestly. Like you said, it was stacked, just a ton of stars. So, I mean, if you weren't going to use an NXT guy in a Rumble for a year, I think maybe you could have gotten away with it for this year. Obviously, you got a celebrity appearance in there with the I Show Speed guy.
That was worth it.
And yeah, I was saying that was totally worth it because he got wrecked by Braun. But, they're going to probably use those, if they have a celebrity that they're kind of involving a little bit, they're probably going to give them a spot over an NXT person just because it'll get those YouTube views and those TikTok views and stuff like that, just because, as many views as you can get is the most important thing in television and all that these days. So, but yeah, I mean, like I said, of all the years, I could probably see them not having an NXT person in it just because it was so stacked with talent and, legends and stuff like that, that it an NXT person showing up might have fallen by the wayside a little bit. And they didn't want to kind of have them not mean as much. But yeah, I was shocked maybe one didn't show up, at least maybe your champion in Oba Femi. But obviously we'll talk about him in a minute. Yeah. But I was shocked there wasn't at least one. But again, of all years, I guess I can understand it for this one.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm not my kids knew who I Show Speed was. I didn't know who he was. But I hate it when they waste Rumble spots on like something dumb. The Drew Carey thing, dumb. Pat McAfee, I didn't like it. I didn't like the time when they had Cole and Booker and Jerry Lawler going. I don't like wasting spots. There are so many guys on there, and I know that it's there for a moment, what have you. And this one was worth it. Look, they teased like with Tozawa going out, then getting his ass kicked, kind of similar how Lana got taken out and then Becky got into the Rumble, so there was precedent for something like that happening before. I mean, that Braun. I mean, I have watched that clip so many times. It is so. I mean, he just, spears him to oblivion, and then though he press slams him out to Otis, and Otis just gives him like a flip over on the table.
Yeah, he sack of shit slams him over the announce table.
Cole's like, "Are you okay, sir?" I mean, so that was worth it to me. Not Drew Carey, crapping his pants at the side of Kane and like jumping over the ropes. No.
Yeah, the McAfee one last year pissed me off a lot because he gets in the ring, sees all the monsters, and then he just like hops right back out, and I'm like, man, do we really waste a spot on that?
Yeah.
He didn't even get involved or thrown out or anything like that. Just stupid. But yeah, that was totally worth it for sure.
So you mentioned Oba. Yeah, he actually wasn't the one that I was the most surprised wasn't in.
Yeah, true.
But I don't know, maybe to protect him though, because Oba's a beast on NXT.
Yeah.
But you get him in the ring with Roman, Drew, Cena, Seth, Punk. Maybe he gets exposed. Maybe he doesn't seem as big of a monster compared to them. So I don't think you want to kind of take the bloom off the rose, so to speak, with him. Maybe that was what they were thinking. Because to me, look, I mean, more about on your great show, The Cross Up. You cover a lot more wrestling than what I do, and he was one of those guys. Like his push to the top has seemed a little quicker than I would have thought. Not saying he hasn't deserved it and he hasn't been great, but he came in, he won the what the hell's that thing called?
Breakout tournament.
The breakout tournament. But he wasn't like on TV all that much before, becoming North American champion, the heel turn, and then obviously now he's the champion. So, do you agree with kind of like my thoughts here? Like maybe it was to protect him more than because I think it could have had like a adverse effect if they had put him in the Rumble. Do you think?
Yeah, I could get where you're coming from. Maybe you don't want to make him look dumb by getting eliminated by somebody much smaller than he was.
Although Vince might have done that though.
Yeah,
he had done it before.
Or like throwing him in there and doing like a monster off with him and Braun Strowman or something like that, and Braun getting the best of him, and something like that. That would have been cool to see, but I get why they didn't throw him in there. For maybe like he couldn't. There were so many stars in there, so many like main roster guys, and like we said, returning people, and Cena was in there, and Roman was in there, and you just don't want him to seem less than as your champion of your developmental brand. So I totally get it, but it would have been cool to maybe see at least the champion represent the brand.
Yeah, but the big surprise, and I know you pretty much agree with me, is I would have thought Trick was going to be in that Rumble. I thought maybe we got him and Mello with maybe a stare down or something. Yeah. That big ass stadium, Lucas Oil Stadium with a Colts play, go and whoop that Trick. Mm-hmm. It was tailor made, and I mean, again, this was. I think if you don't have Cena in the Rumble, then there's a spot open, and he might have been the one they put in there. Mm-hmm. So I don't know what. As we're going down and we're trying to, I'm up at at JT's in Rhode Island with my son and a couple other guys were there, and it was like we're trying to, you're doing this too, like you're trying to do the math in your head, like okay, how many spots left? Who haven't we seen yet? Da 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 da. And it's like as we started getting towards, I'm like, he was one of the guys. I'm like, and my son even said to me, he goes, how come Trick's not? And I said, I don't even know because he's doing the figuring out also as well. So Were you just as surprised as I was not to see Trick Williams in the Rumble?
Yeah, like you said, I could have seen him getting out there early when Mello was still in there and kind of having a face-off, having a little battle real quick with those two guys. But, yeah, he's definitely the one I would have been the most surprised that didn't show up. Maybe it was because Booker wasn't on commentary, so he couldn't do the sing-along.
Yeah, I like it.
But yeah, it would have been cool to see the big stadium do the whoop that Trick and stuff. So definitely a surprising omission. Like if Tozawa had made it to the ring and like somebody like Trick or Oba then wasn't in the Rumble, that would have probably pissed me off pretty good. But like I said, the speed bump was worth it all in the end. But if somebody like you could have taken Otis out. Like, I mean, obviously he played a part in that, what we were just talking about, but somebody a little bit lower on the main card or like a tag guy like that.
Yeah, I could have given there weren't a lot of in this Rumble actually.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
I'm one of those. I'm just such a nerd about tag team wrestling that I think there should be a tag team Money in the Bank, and I think there should be a tag team Rumble. If the Rumble goes 2 nights, night one open with a tag team Rumble, let those guys get some shine on it, and then close with the Women's Rumble. Night 2, close with the Men's Rumble, or whatever. Yeah. So that's just me. I like to get more not that I loved the Greatest Royal Rumble, but it was like nice to see like more guys kind of get a chance to be in there. And maybe it's just because I love the Rumble so much that it's like, just give me more, come on.
Yeah.
So there was just a few other guys that maybe. I mean, obviously the men's side is stacked. Ethan Page would not have been surprised. I wouldn't have been disappointed. Well, maybe I wouldn't have been disappointed for Ethan Page or your current NXT North American champion Tony D'Angelo. That would have been like a big that. They would have been taking a little bit of a chance there with Tony D because he hasn't. He's been in the arena shows for NXT, but this is just ginormous compared to anything he's been in. Ridge, I would not have been happy about it. I would have gotten it. Why he would have been Sean Spears and Wes Lee. So any of these guys could you have seen in the Rumble this year, or would have made sense to put them in the Rumble?
Yeah, I would have been surprised if any of these guys had popped up, honestly. But considering the star power that we've talked about already. But, Ethan has a name. He's been in other companies. He's been a big star for TNA. He's been in AEW. I won't say he was a huge star in AEW because they didn't particularly use him that well, like a guy we'll talk about later. But he's a name, and I think a lot of people would recognize him or know him from at least his runs in TNA and AEW. So, and then Tony D, he's been established in the NXT brand for as long as we've even been doing this podcast. Or
he was a 2.0 guy.
Yeah, 2.0 beginner. Like he was there at the beginning of the whole thing. So. I could have seen him just getting the veteran of that brand kind of push into the Rumble. But, yeah, Ridge, Sean, and Wes, it would have been a real shocker if I had seen any of them in there.
All right. So that was the good. We're going to talk about a little bit of bad. So, like what happens at least once a year, sometimes twice, usually in the spring, although we're in the winter, there was a kind of a little batch of releases. And not a lot of people currently in NXT, but almost everybody we're going to talk about was in NXT at one point. So the first one, which was kind of quiet and not really part of these releases because it happened in January, and these really happened about 5 days to a week before we're recording here on a Wednesday night, the 12th. First one, Duke Hudson. I was surprised at this one because I thought, you and I have talked about him. We're fans of Duke. We just think he needs a better gimmick. Once the Chase U thing was over, I mean, his card player gambler gimmick was really not doing much. But he's a solid big guy, best hot tag in NXT for a long time. So I was kind of surprised with that. What were your thoughts when you heard about it?
Yeah, I was definitely shocked. He seemed to always kind of be featured with the Chase U stuff, and obviously we haven't really seen anybody but Mr. Chase, obviously, since that breakup happened. Thea hadn't been on TV. We hadn't seen Riley. Obviously, I think we'll talk about some of them later on. But yeah, I mean, that they haven't been featured all that much since that happened, or if at all. But yeah, definitely shocked by that one because he seemed to be a really, really good tag worker. I don't know who you throw him with, but I think he probably could have ended up in a team with somebody else, and had a lot of success. But I'm kind of interested to see where he goes from here. I think he could be somebody that could, really shine in a TNA right now. If he wanted to go over there. But
I don't think this is the last we'll see of him. He's one of those guys. Maybe he could pull a Drew or whoever, go away, get better, get more established, kind of thing. Definitely see TNA as a better destination for him.
Yeah. I at this point, it's not an AEW hater thing or anything like that, but I almost hate to see somebody like him go to AEW because I feel like he would just get lost in the shuffle. But obviously, if that's where he ends up, best of luck to him. But
make your money, dude.
But I would say TNA would probably be a best case scenario for somebody like him because he could really establish himself and, like you said, maybe come back one day.
Yeah, maybe could have put him in a tag team with like Josh Briggs, like a Twin Towers kind of thing.
Yeah.
Which would have been fun. All right, so the next one, although I don't know, was she in NXT very long at one point? But she was just in the Women's Rumble. And this was a little surprising, and it's not really a release. Some of these also weren't really releases. It was like they were told their contracts weren't be renewed, which were coming up soon, I guess. Sonya Deville, I was a little surprised of it. Of course, a lot of us don't like the Pure Fusion Collective. It's nothing against the people in the faction. It's just it's a dumb name, really. And she was like a player coach for a while, right? So I was somewhat surprised because she was one of those I thought would be kind of if she wasn't wrestling, almost like in an ambassador kind of role for them. So she's somebody you could flip a coin where she may end up next, whether it's AEW or TNA, or she could even end up in Japan. But yeah, I thought she was solid. She did lose a good deal of momentum with the personal issues that she had with I believe it was like a stalker or something like that. Yeah. So were you surprised with Sonya?
Yes and no, really. I feel like she's one of those that's had a lot of false starts, whether it was that or, you know, injuries and stuff like that. I feel like she's just had a lot of stop and goes. They give her this group. You would think they would get presented pretty well, but I'm pretty sure they haven't won all that many matches since they got together. So they were never really heavily pushed or anything like that. Yeah, she didn't spend a ton of time in NXT from what I remember, because she was in that last season of Tough Enough they did, and I think she may have done some tag stuff in NXT before she went up, but yeah, she wasn't long for the NXT world when she was kind of around, but yeah, she's probably just one of those that I feel like they probably just kind of gave up on. Like, we've made you the GM, we've given you this group, you've been in a tag team. And it just never really seemed to work out. Like, I won't say she was ever bad in any of those roles, but it just didn't stand out per se, I guess. So not 100% shocking, but like you said, I think she's a pretty good ambassador and does a lot of those, like, events for them. Obviously, being part of the LGBTQ community, she can speak at a lot of those kind of conventions and stuff like that. So maybe shocking from that perspective, but maybe not for the in-ring kind of stuff.
All right. The next one, this was a big surprise to me because she's been on TV a lot. She's in a tag team. Isla Dawn. I was completely surprised at her. I don't know what maybe the reasoning could have been. I don't know if she, sometimes you don't know. Maybe she asked for release. She's somebody I think will sign as soon as her 90 days is up, because I really, from the get-go, I really enjoyed her character. As we talked about her and Alba, I called them the Coven for a while. I was completely surprised because she was just on NXT actually recently. Her and Alba were challenging Lash and Jakara to see who's going to be number one contender for the women's tag belts. So where does this leave Alba? And that's pretty much what I was going to say.
Yeah, honestly, if they got rid of one, I'm kind of surprised they didn't get rid of both of them, because it's not like they were together for a long time. They've been a group, or they've been a tag team for quite a bit. They became a tag team in NXT. They were kind of friends or enemies that became friends and tag team partners and stuff like that. So like I said, like you just said, I don't know what they kind of do with Alba now that she's gone. But yeah, definitely shocking. She's been pretty involved in the tag team division for a while, but like you said, maybe she asked for a release, and I think she'll easily sign somewhere pretty quickly after she's back, or after she's available too. So, because she said "see you in 90 days" when she put her little post on Twitter or Instagram, whatever it was.
Alba did have a lot of single success before, when she was still going by Keely Ray. Mm-hmm. So maybe they see her more as a singles at some point. Maybe repackage her a little bit back, kind of to how she was before. I don't know.
Yeah. No, she can be successful. I just seems kind of strange that they would do it the way they did.
Yeah. This was not a shock, because this is probably the second or third time these guys have been released. They were down in NXT. They're like a good veteran presence. I feel like those of us who have not seen the Bullet Club Japan stuff, I have not seen these guys at their best. But the Good Brothers, Luke Gallows, Machine Gun Anderson, and not a surprise. I mean, especially these are guys that been around a long time, haven't had a serious push. They were part of AJ's, faction, the club, whatever they were calling it, and they're one of those, like, they need a tag team down in NXT. They go down there, maybe they work with them when they're not, when it's not Tuesday, they'll work with the kids at the Performance Center. So I mean, I could see them kind of coming in for spots here and there, maybe not being under contract, although WWE doesn't do that nearly as much as other companies like AEW. Maybe they show up in AEW, get back together with, like, the Elite or something like that. But yeah, I'm assuming you weren't shocked either.
No, definitely not. I think honestly, the last time they came in, it was kind of a favor to AJ because AJ kind of wanted him to be back, to kind of have a crew with him on one of his more recent heel runs. But yeah, these guys probably come back and leave about 4 more times before they're all said and done. But yeah, Gallows has been. This is probably Gallows, 4th or 5th run with the company. He'll come in for a bit and then kind of. Go somewhere else. They seem to kind of fit the best in TNA. That they've been there quite a few times before as well. So I think that's kind of a home that could, and not to throw everybody there, but I think they're probably a little below what AEW would kind of go for at this point. Not to shit on them too badly, but I think even AEW is probably like, yeah, these guys' star is probably dimmed a little bit throughout the year. So, but yeah, I could definitely see them popping back up in TNA.
I love the story that I heard where somebody had to explain to Vince that Luke Gallows was Festus, I think.
Oh God!
Like he didn't remember him. Like when they re-signed him as with Carl Anderson, like somebody had to tell him like, that's Festus, right?
You're kidding, pal.
I didn't know that. Ring the bell. Let's see what happens. All right, so we got a few more Authors of Pain. This one somewhat surprising, but not when you hear that they don't have the best reputation in the locker room for being stiff. And Paul Ellering as well. Look, Paul Ellering, I was kind of like, why is he here? Kind of thing. I don't know what they're going to do with the Karrion Kross faction. Maybe they add to it. Maybe they just put him and Scarlett just as their little act again, like they were. But not a surprise. The time maybe the timing wise thought may have been a surprise, but when you kind of take a step back, you think, yeah, these guys they had their time. They were awesome when they were in NXT. They were dominant. They were serious pushes going on there. But they're kind of not nearly as bad as Christ, I always blank on them. The guys, the tag team that came up around 2015, 2016, right? They were with Seth for a while. Victor and
the Ascension.
The Ascension. Not nearly as quickly decline as the Ascension was when he came to the main roster, but definitely their best days within WWE were in NXT. So, any thoughts on the AOP?
Yeah, this is just one that makes you wonder why they even brought him back in the first place, because they never really did anything with him. Like, they were obviously part of Final Testament, but even the group of Final Testament hasn't really been pushed all that, in a big way. And if they have, it's been stuff with like Karrion, like playing mind games with people. But like, I couldn't even tell you anything they've done since they came back, other than maybe facing New Day when they were trying to get into Xavier's head before they kind of turned heel as well. So, I think Karrion's probably better off by himself. I'm shocked that they brought Ellering back for any reason, because even if you're going to say the Final Testament needs a manager, they already have Scarlett, so just have Scarlett be the manager of the team, Karrion, whatever. But yeah, Karrion and Scarlett are probably better as a package by themselves. So Ellering was just probably taking up a little bit of money on the sheets or whatever.
Yeah.
And they didn't really use AOP well or at all for their pretty much entire run here. So
I think they were actually signed for quite some time before they even came back on TV, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. That
was always the rumor, at least. I won't say that's necessarily the case or whatever, but that's what the sheet said.
So this one, I'm not saying it was a surprise. It was kind of a head scratcher, because Blair Davenport, she had an okay run in NXT. Nothing too much to write home about, but she was decent down there, and I thought maybe they would have put her like with Isla and Alba, and like maybe like a little bit of a faction there, and gets drafted to SmackDown, right? And hardly appeared. I mean, I don't know if she got hurt or whatever, but this was a little surprising because it's like why, like why bring her up? I mean, obviously they probably didn't know at the time they were going to release her in however many months or a year, or whatever. But this was kind of a like, what happened here? Like where was the disconnect?
Yeah, I mean, this one just seemed like a call up for the sake of a call up. When they did call her up, because I mean, I think she could have been better off in NXT, kind of being, a bigger fish down there than being, like the last person used on SmackDown, because she did that stuff with Naomi at first when she first kind of came to the main roster, but I guess clearly somebody either wasn't a big fan of her, or didn't think she did well, or like you said, maybe she had gotten hurt or something like that, and there wasn't a roster spot for her. But we'll talk about some free agents later, but I kind of see a lot of these moves as like clearing a little bit of space, so maybe they can sign some of these guys that are becoming available from AEW or TNA or whatever. So maybe this has a lot more to do with that than maybe like, necessarily needing to cut these people, but just to maybe like be able to offer more money to these guys that are becoming available, that they might want to bring back or, start for the first time. But yes, she just seemed, when she got called up, it seemed like they just called her up because they like didn't want her to be on NXT anymore, but they really didn't have plans for her on SmackDown per se at the same time. So definitely a strange one. Because it just never really seemed like they gave her a chance.
Yeah. This one wasn't a shock either, because he had been around for a while, and he was I'm guessing he was player coaching down at NXT, which was Cedric Alexander, a guy I've always liked, but he was never going to crack higher than maybe mid card. I mean, I thought he was fine, kind of with Javon Evans kind of under his wing a little bit, but where he goes, I mean, as everybody said, like, he could go to TNA, which would probably be the best place for him, or he could rejoin the Hurts, the Hurt, whatever they call a syndicate now in AEW, although there's apparently some stuff that happened with his wife over there, Big Swole. So
that's true.
Yeah, what do you think about Cedric here?
Yeah, again, no matter where he goes, he's going to kind of be a player coach, kind of just a utility guy kind of person. He's, I don't say he's super old or anything like that, but he's kind of on the older side. Probably he would probably benefit, obviously financially, from going to AEW and being kind of the fall guy for the Hurt Syndicate, because obviously that's what he would be. He's going to take the pins in the trios matches where they face whoever. They won't pin Bobby and they won't pin Shelton unless they have to or whatever. But, he's either going to go there and be the fall guy for the Hurt Syndicate, or, he'd go to TNA and be in the X division, maybe get a reign somewhere along the line. But he's going to be, he's going to be an enhancement guy wherever he kind of goes. He's going to be there to make other people look good, because that's what he's good at. And unfortunately, some people get pigeonholed into that spot. Just in general, and that's just how it is.
Yeah, he's a solid hand. That's basically the best. Yeah. He's going to put on good matches, but he's not a guy you're gonna push. In other words.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely, especially not at this point in his career, of course.
Yeah, you want somebody that's getting a new push or a recent heel turn, or face turn, or another signee that you want to have them go over on a name, and he's still a name. So, yeah, he's not like enhancement talent from Cincinnati kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the last release, as far as we know for now, not another shot, because the guy has not been on TV, and from we all read the same things, we see the same stuff on Twitter. Backstage issues I think had happened at some point. Was Giovanni Vinci, a guy super talented. Yeah. I call him like Cesaro 2.0. kind of deal, because a guy who's, like I said, he can go in the ring, did so many impressive moves as part of Imperium, but they gave him this Giovanni Vinci thing. They repackaged him in NXT, and then they when they brought him up to the main roster, they kind of kept the name but went back to the old Fabian Eichner right? Was his name before?
Yeah.
Gimmick, like kind of that with just the Vinci name, and then they went back to the Giovanni Vinci. Appeared a couple of times, got jobbed out to, I believe, what's his face, Apollo Crews.
Yeah.
So, yeah, not a surprise. I mean, the rumors that I had heard, and I'm sure you heard them as well, that apparently like he made a pass or something, hit on Tiffany Stratton, who's with his former tag team partner, and that's why they kind of split them up. But who knows? That's dirt sheet stuff. But maybe the guy had issues. I don't know. But not a shock because he really hadn't been on TV that much at all in the last year or so. Not a surprise.
Yeah. I mean, obviously he pissed somebody off along the line because, he had all those vignettes throughout the months on SmackDown, and then he immediately gets on the main roster and loses in like 8 seconds to Apollo Crews, like you said. I think he lost to him twice in like the span of a couple of weeks. So yeah, like, to get that hyped up only to come in and just immediately get squashed by somebody who's pretty low on the card, I'll say, kind of another one of those utility players like we were talking about with Cedric a minute ago. But yeah, I mean, he must have a bad attitude backstage, or gotten in some altercations like that, like you were talking about. But yeah, all the talent in the world. If he can fix whatever his issues are, with attitude, or with whatever problems he seems to have had throughout his WWE run, because when they were Imperium and NXT, kind of before 2.0, or like right as 2.0 was about to start, they were one of the best tag teams in the world, and I would put him up against pretty much anybody, and it was a lot to do with him. I think he's super talented, he's super strong, so he's somebody to look out for, but hopefully he can fix whatever problems he had kind of backstage going forward.
He was the highlight reel of those tag matches. I mean, Kaiser's got the personality, and he's good in the ring.
Yes.
But Vinci is better in the ring, but had no personality. Mm-hmm. So you kind of need. They played well off each other. Then for whatever reason, whether it was true or not, the backstage stuff is whether or not they helped each other out. They gave that good balance there to the team, but it's unfortunate because the guy's super talented. You hate to see that when they can go, but there's no character. They don't make you. They're great in the ring, but you don't care. They don't give you something to care about. You don't get invested in them.
Mm-hmm. So exactly.
All right, so there are also possible signings, though. There are rumors out there. Whether or not these people end up in NXT is another story. I think that anybody coming out of AEW, unless you're really in the upper card there, I think you have to go to NXT. And it's not, I'm not hating on AEW. I watch AEW. There are some things I like about it. I just scratch my head with their booking, and I hate the Death Riders angle. I think it's just so dumb. I think it's just
you're not backwards. One, I promise.
Oh yeah, I know that, but I don't want to offend any AEW people listening. But it's not to get the AEW stench of it, but it's to kind of like reestablish them and kind of give them like a blank slate. And doing that on Raw or SmackDown, again, like we said, like how I said about Oba maybe being in the Rumble overshadowed, I think that would be bad. I mean, unless you're an AJ Styles or something like that, you're not going straight to the main roster anymore as a signee. Mm-hmm. You have to be that level for the most part to a show. So, Aleister Black, formerly Malachi Black, I don't think he's going to go to NXT. I mean, I wouldn't be upset if he showed up there or maybe stayed for a little bit, but I think he could be ending up on SmackDown before long, maybe doing something with Karrion Kross or something. Who knows? Do you see him coming back soon?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what the contract situation is with him. I don't know if he immediately became a free agent or if he has to kind of wait it out, because I don't think he got released. I think it was more of a contract kind of ran out. He just didn't renew or whatever. But yeah, I definitely see him back. Obviously, he's married to Zelina Vega, so move to SmackDown would definitely make sense because that's where she is, obviously. So, but yeah, I think if you're kind of an established WWE talent before, obviously he was on SmackDown and Raw and stuff like that before. So if it's somebody like that, I don't really see them coming back and coming to NXT. If he comes in for just a little like run for a match with somebody, I could see that maybe, but I definitely see him probably going to SmackDown. I don't know if he comes in before, with Mania. It could be in kind of Mania season. It's kind of odd to maybe get some of these guys in now, but I could see him definitely showing up after Mania.
Yeah. The other one is Miro, a.k.a. Rusev. Now, he's been doing a lot of stuff outside of wrestling, so he may, he could also walk away from it. Mm-hmm. But he's another guy. I think he comes in. If he does come back, he's Rusev on the main roster.
Yeah.
Although I would love to see, I know he's a commentator over there in TNA, but getting Aiden English to come out and Rusev Day. And even, dude, I would bring Lana back, because they kept when she was just that like cold-hearted,
But they're not together anymore, so.
I know, but they could work together.
Yeah, that's true.
Hair in a bun, keep that power suit on. I mean, they ruined her once they started like de-Russianizing her. I guess is the best way to say. That character was so good. Mm-hmm. And it just kind of fell to the wayside. Another one that you're probably a lot more familiar with than I am, Josh Alexander, right? His contract is up with TNA, right?
Yeah, he is. I'm pretty sure that's correct. He is wrestling what they're calling his final match on Impact this Thursday. So I honestly think he could probably show up at Vengeance Day and kind of be a surprise. I kind of talked about it in one of the group chats. I can't remember if it was the main one or kind of one of the side chats that I have with a couple other people. But I kind of talked about maybe Josh comes out and gets involved in the Javon Evans Ethan Page match that we'll have at Vengeance Day and kind of helps old Ethan out, and then maybe we could get the North versus Fraxium at Sand and Deliver. So. I would like to see them both get a singles run, but a quick, tag team title run for a established TNA team, getting that shot in WWE would be really cool. And talk about all-time possible tag team matches. If the North and Fraxium went against each other, that would be absolutely it would be 4 stars at worst, because they would just absolutely kill it with each other. So, hopefully something like that happens, but we'll see. If he comes in and is a singles guy and they have a feud or whatever with him and Ethan, that would work as well. But I would love to see them do a quick tag run with those guys and maybe put over a new team, whenever they lose the belts or whatever. But I could see Josh showing up Saturday or Sunday, whenever the show is. Because like I said, his quote unquote last match against Eric Young is on Thursday. So.
Are there any others you think possible free agents right now from TNA or AEW that we know are either on their way, are going to be out very soon, or actually are available right now?
Not off the top of my head. We'll talk about one that showed up last night on NXT. He was probably the other one that I would have said, but. Yeah. I don't really know anybody that's contract is particularly up or that is a big enough star for me to be, maybe them. I mean, anybody in AEW getting pissed off that they're not getting pushed, honestly, anyone could fit into that role.
Yeah.
Because I feel like they just have so many people on their roster and certain guys that have potential just aren't getting used the way that they probably should. But, the 3 that we just mentioned, I think definitely probably end up back. Like you said, if Rusev decides to go into acting or whatever else he wants to do, maybe he does that. But if he does wrestling again, I definitely see all 3 of those guys showing up at some point.
All right. Yeah, so I'm going to pull back the curtain a little bit. So watching NXT last night, and I'm writing the notes up for Logan and I to kind of, that way, Logan knows what the direction, basically podcasting 101, right? And as I was talking about possible signings, I had my list: Aleister Black, Rusev, Josh Alexander, and I had a 4th name on there. And as something happened, I'm like, delete, slamming the button. And it was Ricky Starks. Now, obviously, been a long time. Ricky has been off TV, miserable, trying to get out of his contract over there. And he walks out right before the main event. cuts a promo in the crowd in the performance center. Place kind of goes bananas. I think it's going to do wonders for him. I think he's a great signing, great fit for over there. And I did pop big time. I'm not as familiar with Ricky outside of some of the stuff he did in AEW, but I'm excited. Like these guys, I just want to see people succeed, right? I don't wish for anybody to do bad. And getting somebody here, giving them like a fresh kind of lease on life in the wrestling world, and seeing what they could do in NXT and get themselves reestablished character, build them up so they can make that jump to Raw or SmackDown eventually. I think it's just a good thing for the business. I think it's good for us fans. I think it's good for them, and I'm excited to see where what he does when he comes in. So, Logan, I think you were pretty pumped too when you saw him, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. He's been a guy I've been looking to kind of come over at some point. Anybody that when AEW started was kind of a Cody Rhodes guy, quote unquote. Your Sean Spears. Obviously, I think Ricky kind of falls into that category as well. Like, I think they're good buddies. I think he helps train at the Rhodes' like gym and stuff like that. So, but yeah, no, he was in the early parts of the like new NWA that Billy Corgan runs. So he was one of the first kind of established stars in that. So I've been a huge fan of him ever since he was in that. He's just got a charisma about him. He's very good on the mic. He's not a great in-ring guy, would say, but he's solid enough. But he's really good at the promo stuff, and he's like I said, he's just got the command of the crowd really well. So, he's a guy that definitely deserves a shot. Definitely didn't deserve to be off of TV as long as he was. I think he hasn't been on TV in forever. Like him and Big Bill were tag team champions, and I think ever since they lost the titles, he hasn't been on TV, and it's been at least a year ago, if not longer. So, definitely a guy that doesn't need to be on the sideline, no matter where he is, because he's just too talented and too good at a lot of things to be sat to the side, kind of like that. So. Him not being featured on AEW television was a travesty, and it's really bad on them, I would say. So, but yeah, definitely looking real forward to what he can do here, because I think he adds a lot of star power that maybe he's been lacking on the men's side for a while.
Yeah, the women's side is pretty stacked. The men's side has a lot of great, but there's going to be some turnover soon, obviously, with call-ups, what have you. Obviously, we're not going to really get into Rey Fenix. He's not going to go to NXT. I assume he'll I think it's nice that we're getting the singles run from Penta. Eventually, Rey Fenix will sign, and we'll get them together, the Lucha Brothers. So that's going to be pretty sick. But there are some others that are currently on the contract. Some are being featured actually on AEW, but I think if when their contracts are up, maybe they should consider a jump over. And like somebody we haven't seen that much of at all lately, Sammy Guevara. I think I'd put Sammy in that Ethan Page, Ricky Starks thing. Like, he shows up in NXT, I think the place goes bananas. I think he gets established. It's a way for him to kind of reintroduce himself. Yeah. And I think as being a high fly something, once Fraxium moves on, obviously we'll have Javon there for a while. But what other really high flyers will there be in NXT besides maybe Riley Osborne and maybe a couple others? So I think that would be good for him. I think these guys are being featured, but I think that if they were to come if they were to come to WWE, I think NXT would be the best place for them to land. Would be Powerhouse Hobbs and Brian Cage. I don't know what you thought on those three guys.
Yeah, I mean, I could definitely see Sammy popping up. Hobbs is young enough to where I think he could, if he wanted to make the jump, he could. But like you said, he's been featured a good bit on AEW lately, doing the stuff with Jericho right now. Obviously had the shot at Mox after he won the Battle Royal or whatever. So probably him less likely. Brian Cage, he's with the Don Callis family and all that. So. I mean, he's being at least featured, I would say. So maybe not him as much, but yeah, Sammy's been doing the ROH thing with Dustin Rhodes. They're like the tag team champions or whatever. I don't pay attention to ROH. I tried at first and on the cross up, and it's so irrelevant.
Yeah.
Nobody cares about it to where it just isn't worth watching. But
I mean, apparently Athena, aka Ember Moon, has been killing it there, but nobody's seeing it.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the problem with it. Ugh, Tony.
Well, I mean, it's just I hate to go on this diatribe, but it's just one of those things. Like you have a world title. It's obviously on somebody like Chris Jericho. I'm good with it being on Chris Jericho. Build credibility of the title. I'm good with it being on a Mark Briscoe, but they need to be on ROH television. They're the Ring of Honor champion on Dynamite every week, but they're not actually showing up on ROH except for like the 2 weeks before the next ROH pay-per-view to be like, oh yeah, this is my challenger. He's going to lose to me at the pay-per-view, so you shouldn't care about it. So it's just like, I mean, it's genuinely what it's
true.
Like Mark Briscoe was the champion for like 6 or 7 months, I would say. Probably showed up 3 or 4 times, and it was just to be like, oh yeah, we're doing this match at Final Battle. Buy the show, check it out, and it's just, he's just on AEW television every week. Like, you're getting the title belt out there, but you're not establishing it within the brand, so it's just dumb. But yeah, I mean, any of those guys could have some success over there, but like I said, I think those 3 guys especially are being used right now, so I think they're probably good in their spot, emotionally at least, or like, I think they're happy that they're in AEW. They're not disappointed or whatever.
Yeah.
Now the next 2 that you have listed, maybe not so.
Yeah, so we have Wardlow, who has been touted as like the next big thing. He's another guy. He shows up. They sign him. He shows up on Raw or SmackDown. It's kind of like, oh boy, he's great. Like, we want to see this guy succeed, but look at who he'd be up facing. Now he shows up on NXT and starts wrecking people.
Yeah. Then
Wardlow is that's your monster. Doesn't matter which side of the fence you're going to put him on. But he will go down there and he'll dominate. He's a guy that, I think a lot of fans are dying for him to get out of there. I think if you were to say who are the top 10 people you think that would benefit from leaving AEW and signing with WWE, he'd be in the top 10 for sure, maybe even top 5.
Yeah. I mean, he's obviously shown that he's talented. Again, maybe not the match classic kind of guy, but he obviously has a presence about him. People have gotten behind him before, and they've given him pushes, but obviously it just hasn't ever worked out. Like it seems like they just he's just one of those guys that they seem to give up on anytime they start to do anything with. Like, again, I don't know if he has like a bad attitude backstage, or if he's not well liked, or if they don't really disclose a ton of injuries a lot of the time, but I don't know if he's like kind of susceptible to injuries or whatever, but he's definitely a guy that needs to get out of there and go somewhere else where he can be a big star, because he's definitely got the potential to do so.
All right, and then the next one coming out in the dirt sheets, whatever, that she is probably done, but she's got a considerable amount of time on her contract unless there's a buyout or whatever, which I doubt Tony will do. And there are rumors of her attitude backstage. Now, Britt Baker, would she, if she say she's done officially, she can sign wherever she wants, she signs with WWE. Is she big enough now? And also being on the women's side of the fence, is she big enough to debut on Raw or SmackDown, or do you think she would do better with a run in NXT?
I mean, honestly, if it's somebody from the outside, I think they would always benefit from going to NXT and being like the big fish in the small pond, or whatever you want to call it. Yeah. I know I've gone back to that analogy a lot, but I think anyone that's not an established WWE name, like she's been in NXT before, but I just could see her getting lost in the shuffle pretty quickly in the main roster. She's not going to be above like a Bianca. She's not going to be above a Charlotte or a Becky or Tiffany at this point, or anybody like that. So I think she could benefit from going to NXT for just a little bit, maybe having a quick title run, putting over a few people on the way there, and then put her up on the main roster fairly quickly and kind of have her build herself there. But I mean, with all the titles now, like, you know, they have the women's Intercontinental and women's U.S. titles. You know, she could be on the main roster, but would very quickly be in one of those kind of divisions for me, than be in the main picture. Like, I think she probably in her mind thinks she deserves, which, you know, if she goes over there and kind of establishes herself that way, then she can. But she's been real hot and cold over the last few years. I feel like she had a lot of good stuff at first and kind of got a big idea of herself. And she's, you know, the match that she had with Mercedes at All In this past year was one of the worst women's matches I've ever seen. It was really bad. I mean, obviously with people that are talented, at least, are supposed to be, you know, you have some of those bra and panty matches back in the day where they were worse, obviously, but yeah, that, you know, that was touted as like one of the greatest matchups of all time, and it completely flopped. But she needs to definitely, I guess, somewhat get her attitude in check and be friendly with others. Yeah, I definitely think she could benefit from a quick run on NXT and then go.
I think her dental practice is actually in Florida. I think.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's right.
That's where her and Adam Cole were. So, I mean, maybe she would prefer to be in NXT if she were to sign with them, so she could keep doing it. Although I don't know if WWE will allow. That's part of the reason I think why she, you know, re-signed with AEW whenever her last contract was up, because that she could keep doing her dental practice. So.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely correct on that one.
All right, so now, well, you know, obviously we're not going to run down all of the shows because we would be here till next year's Vengeance Day. But we're going to get caught up, though, on kind of like the storylines and kind of what's been happening. So one of the latest things here, we have Lexis King. This is a little kind of confusing to me, because is he a heel? Is he a face? What's going on with him and the No Quarter Catch crew? But he's trying to get rid of the traditional Heritage Cup rules, just as I was starting to warm up to them, right?
That's how it happens.
but I mean, why? Then this becomes like your if it doesn't have specific rules to them, then it becomes like your European title or your TV title or what have you. So do you think that it's a good idea for them to get away from it temporarily or even permanently?
I think it loses kind of the luster. I mean, not luster, I guess, but I think it loses its kind of gimmick per se. If you get rid of the rounds, I think that was what kind of made it unique. It may have not made it super entertaining, kind of like you always said you couldn't get with the rounds thing as much as maybe some others were, which is perfectly fine because it is kind of hard to get into sometimes, especially if you don't have great workers or great people doing it. But yeah, I mean, I think that kind of gets rid of some of the, you know, the kind of uniqueness of it. So we'll see if this is just like a Lexis holds the cup for a while and then somebody beats him for it and kind of reestablishes it or whatever. But yeah, his character has definitely been one of the more confusing things over the last few months, because it seems like he didn't want to be like his dad, but now that he's a champion, he kind of wants to be like his dad again. So definitely very strange, and definitely a weird way to kind of get around back to all that.
Yeah, maybe Noam. I don't know how much longer he's going to be out. Maybe, you know, Noam returns, and because he was really the champion, not champion as like he was the champion, like he was one who championed the Heritage Cup format kind of thing. Yeah. So maybe he comes back to challenge him and reestablish the Heritage Cup to the way it's supposed to be, I guess. All right, so you know, we had JDC, right? Is that what his name is over in TNA? AKA Fandango, show up in NXT, and he got a nice ovation with the Fandango music too. And he challenged Lexis King to a Heritage Cup match a couple weeks ago, and then I lost that match this week. But it was a nice return. He's a guy I would not mind seeing him back. You know, especially, you know, if they get Tyler Breeze. I still understand why Tyler Breeze still isn't back. I mean, he's doing a lot of, you know, I think he's in good stuff with them because he does a lot of up, down appearances. So he's basically Xavier's co-host on that.
Yeah.
But what'd you think of the obviously we know they signed a working deal with them and they have a really good relationship. So, but seeing guys come over, being called their one name, but coming with their music or what have you as their previous character. I mean, look, if Nick Nemeth he was somebody that my son was like, maybe Nick Nemeth comes out as Dolph Ziggler. I said, I don't even know what would happen. Like, maybe we'd hear the Dolph music but it'd be Nick, they call him Nick. I don't know what's happening. But what were your thoughts on seeing JDC?
Yeah, it's a weird vortex for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, I definitely think it was weird. I mean, obviously you want to get the pop with the music. I think that's mainly why they did it. But obviously the little graphic called him JDC, and he called himself that, of course. So yeah, it's definitely going to get interesting and kind of annoying and confusing when people like maybe, like you said, Ziggler, Nick Nemeth, whatever you want to call him, comes out, and people like this that have been in WWE before. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely interesting to see him there, get the pop. The match with him and Lexis was fine. Nothing special. Neither of them are particularly like all-time workers or anything like that. So you weren't going to get a classic out of him or anything like that. But good first challenger to kind of get away from the no quarter catch crew for at least a little bit for Lexis. But yeah, definitely interesting to see him back. Get the Fandango pop with the music. So never a bad thing.
All right. So what is going on with Andre Chase since Chase U dissolved? Because he's kind of walking around disheveled, the hair's growing out. Yeah. People are calling him Mr. Chase and trying not to mention that Chase U thing. But I mean, could you see him? I don't honestly know. Like it kind of perplexes me. Like what kind of direction they could take this guy in.
Yeah, it almost seems like they're going to try to like reestablish it or something like that, or rename it, or do something different with it, or something like that. Because Cale Dixon keeps trying to like remind him of the good old days and stuff like that, and then he gets all sad remembering the good old days. And they involved Uriah Connors, or I think that's his name. Mm-hmm. They involved him last night, so I don't know if they're going to try to relaunch it with some different people or something like that, but yeah, definitely very confusing, and I'm not exactly sure the direction that they're kind of trying to go with it.
Isn't Uriah Connor somebody's kid? Is he?
That's Finley.
Yeah, okay, that's what I thought. All right. So again, something I had to edit in my notes was Izzi Dame joining the D'Angelo family, and then I had to add as apparently a ruse for Sean Spears and being part of this group. So it was interesting. So we have that. Last night on NXT, we had the title. The main event was the North American title match in the cage, and I bid on Ridge winning it with the crowbar interference. Mm-hmm. But as soon as I saw like Izzy in the ring, I had a feeling something was going on, and I think she's somebody that will benefit being in a faction. The Spears faction. I mean, I love him. I think, my favorite guy over there, Brooks Jensen. I mean, I think his character is coming along. I guess I can't remember the other guy's name that's in the faction now.
Nico Vance, I think is his name.
Nico Vance.
It's definitely Nico. I know that for sure.
So, I mean, I thought it was fine. I mean, it was one of those, like, you saw that coming a mile away kind of things. I mean, maybe it gives we get another. I don't know if they'll add it to this week or maybe it'll be coming up in the coming weeks where we get a big intergender kind of a 8-person match here. Or I definitely think we're going to get Tony D and Sean Spears probably Roadblock, if not sooner. And I think Sean Spears will take the North American title at that time. Did you think the turn came off well on TV?
Yeah, like I told you last night in our chat, I think I could have seen it playing out a little longer with Izzy, but I definitely saw it coming in some form or fashion. I think it worked out well. It kind of established the Spears faction as a kind of whole unit at that point, because it's kind of just been the guys they've been trying to recruit. It seems like they've been trying to recruit a female lately. And Izzy seems to keep turning him down, but obviously it was mostly a ruse, like you said, to kind of get her in here now. But yeah, I mean, it could be interesting to kind of have faction versus faction going forward. I've been kind of hoping for the, the Spears faction to kind of fully form itself. And they just need to like be pushed and kind of presented a little bit better from here on out. But I definitely think they have legs.
I think maybe Spears' injury, maybe they had to kind of go in a slower pace. I guess maybe because he can't wrestle as much. Like I don't know if he can now yet. Maybe if he's cleared. But yeah, I'm excited to see this. I do. A friend of mine was texting me last night. He goes, "Sean Spears is my hero." I said, "Yeah, I think he's doing great." He goes, "No, look who his wife is."
Oh yeah.
So it popped me.
The ultimate home run there.
Yeah, I tell you. The tag team division starting to heat up over there. We got a lot more teams going at it here. We got, you got Hank and Tank, you got OTM, you got, it seems like every week there's like tag teams like fighting for next step up. So, with Fraxium holding on, we'll talk about that a little more in just a little bit when we get to the Vengeance Day preview. But I think their tag division is really starting to come along here. Any thoughts on it as it is right now?
Yeah, a lot of up-and-coming tag teams. The match that they had last night, the triple threat to name the newest number one contenders, which we'll talk about, like you said earlier, that we'll talk about later. I mean, that match was incredible last night. So the future of the division is really, I think, in a good place. They've been needing to kind of build back up the star power. Kind of like I've said the last few episodes that we've talked about on the men's side, on the tag side. But I think they're starting to really get there with the tag division. And Fraxium's been a really good team at the top to kind of continue to establish all the guys below them as well.
All right. So we have like kind of a new mini faction with Wes Lee, newly established heel, kind of changed his look a little bit, cut his hair. Now these guys were being presented as baby faces, Tyreek Igwe and Tyson DuPont. I don't know about turning them heel because I was like, these guys are just baby face OTM. So kind of right because they're very similar look, similar build. They're big guys. They throw people around kind of thing. So they turned them and they're kind of like Wes Lee's new heavies.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of those like, okay, let's see, like, maybe, he's kind of being the chicken shit heel kind of thing, and he needs some protection. I mean, I like Wes Lee as a heel. I think he's better as a babyface. I think his character but all those like, I'm disappointing myself, or, between him doing that kind of stuff, like I'm going home because I failed, and Roxanne's little addressing, I was getting sick of both of those things happening on a consistent basis. Mm-hmm. But I kind of like this. I like this Wes Lee. I mean, these guys are still on the green side, which may be pairing them up and making them kind of like the heavies for him. Kind of maybe will help them along. But did you have anything on this one? Because to me, I don't know. I mean, maybe they could have just put him with OTM even, because they kind of lost their mouthpiece, so to speak, when Reggie left. So. Or scripts, whatever the hell we call them.
Yeah, who cares?
Yeah. So what do you think of Wes Lee's kind of like new persona with these guys?
Yeah, I thought he could use some heavies to kind of help him out in some of those situations if he was going to be a heel long term. So I it helps DuPont and Igwe. Kind of having that established star, kind of guide them in the right direction, kind of help them push themselves up further in the card. So I like kind of the matchup. I could have seen Wes maybe pairing up with the OTM guys just to, since they're already a little bit more established. But it makes sense for these guys that they could get the rub off of Wes. And Wes could use them to kind of, maybe win a title in the future. that they could be his heavies and take out any other faction that was kind of trying to interfere in their matches and stuff like that. So the team up's not bad, but like you said, I could have seen them kind of pairing Wes with maybe a more established team already, but I think it serves to help Igwe and DuPont more than it kind of probably does Wes at this point.
All right, very good. All right, so we have this new trio. They have a name. My son actually told me earlier, I can't remember for the life of me, of Shotzi, Gigi, and Tatum, kind of these like, I don't know, outcast kind of gothy girls kind of thing going on. I'm kind of digging it. I gotta say, your beloved Gigi in there. Mm-hmm. I think Shotzi's one of those that, she's got to stay healthy, but I do like her in the ring. Gigi, I think, has a shit ton of potential. I can see her up on the main roster within the next year. And Tatum Paxley has grown tremendously. And I mean, she's got a couple of her moves that are somewhat unique. I do enjoy, and I like this kind of establishment, I guess, to kind of combat the mean girls, so to speak, over that at Fatal Influence, which, we'll see how long that faction is going to be around for, because I think maybe, a couple of those girls could be main roster bound within the next 6 months to a year. But, what are your thoughts on this group here? Because I kind of dig them.
Yeah, they seem to work pretty well together, so I'm a fan of them. Anything to get my beloved Gigi on screen more. Definitely I'm into. But yeah, they have the thing with Fatal Influence right now, so hopefully they'll continue to have trios kind of matches with them, and maybe one of these girls ends up maybe beating Fallon for the North American Championship. So we'll see. But yeah, I've enjoyed their skits and kind of in-ring stuff so far.
Okay. So at the end of the last few shows, we're getting teased with a mystery group here, where they're just like some kind of like, we're getting some interference in the signal, we're getting bars and tone, and then we're getting silhouettes. What seems to be like 4 guys. Now, we all know how factions can be good, NWO, various other ones, and then we have the bad, Retribution. Aces and Eights had its moments. I was watching TNA a bit when that was going on. I did enjoy some stuff, but some of the other stuff I'm like kind of like, okay, a lot of these guys are kind of like jobbers to the stars in this group, and some of the guys also were like kind of over the hill in that. But so fans believe they identified the Mysteries Men as, let's get these names here, right? Saquon Sugars, Cutler James, Keanu Carver, and Dion Lennox. And they're all in the developmental system. The only one I think I've heard of the Keanu Carver, I think. I may have heard of him.
He was in the breakout tournament, I remember.
Yes, that was it. And Cutler James sounds a little familiar. Saquon Sugars, Jesus Christ, that is shout out to our friends Jenny, Tim, and Greg from PTV NXT back in the day. With the random name, that is a name generator name right there, if there ever was one. Dion Lennox has been on TV a bit, so I don't know, because it's like, this ain't the Shield. These ain't guys that we've seen on TV and have been featured prominently, and one of them being the first ever NXT champion there. I mean, these are kind of like, who? If this holds true, I don't know. It could go off like a fart in church. Yeah. I don't know who else it could be. Maybe some TNA guys. I don't know. But what do you think it's going to be? Something like this developmental group, or could it be established? I don't even know.
Yeah, I really have no clue. We kind of talked about it in our chat. Mm-hmm. The last couple, or like I think it was yesterday. But yeah, I really have no clue. They could do something like this with these guys, but you're taking a big swing and a big hope that they are good enough to kind of get themselves over. Just throwing them out there as a brand new group, kind of hyping them up like this. So, especially with Lennox really being the only established name, and he's been a jobber for the most part. He's had a few backstage segments with like Ashante the Adonis and all the Carmen stuff over the last few months. But yeah, I mean, you're taking a big swing, and it could be a big miss if you try to like push them heavily right out of the gate. And yeah, they need to do something with Saquon Sugar's name, because that's fucking terrible. The others are fine. Cutler James, I feel like, was like one of those guys that was on Level Up a lot before it ended. Obviously, I remember that name kind of popping up. But yeah, like we said, Keanu Carver, I think, was in the breakout tournament, and he was there were two guys. It was him and Oba were like the exact same. They were both huge African American guys, obviously, and they did these awesome power moves and stuff like that. But you know, they were kind of on each opposite sides of the bracket, so it was like there was like an Oba on each side. It seemed like, because they kind of had the same gimmick and kind of style. So, but yeah, you know, that they could go for a swing with this, and if it works, it works, and good for them. But I don't like the idea of possibly not having a kind of established guy at the top for the group. So maybe they come out as the four of them, but then they get a leader eventually. That's kind of a more established guy.
Yeah, like when Retribution debuted, there was potential there, right? We knew who they were, right? They gave them all these fakakta names, but you know, we knew it was Dijak. We knew it was Dio Madden. We knew it was Mercedes. What's her name?
Martinez.
Martinez. We knew it was Michin, right? But you know, they kind of it was a tough time too, because it was the the Thunderdome, whatever the hell it was called, era. So there was some stuff that benefited, like the Alexa Bliss kind of stuff, because they were able to do the editing and not do it, and some a lot of stuff we couldn't have done in front of a live crowd. But you know, this kind of I don't know, it needed that kind of crowd reaction, that shock factor, I guess, kind of like similar to like, look, I don't know if you're ever going to be able to redo something like the NWO or the Shield's debuts, but you know, the Invasion angle would have, you know, even that was better than Retribution. I don't know. I hope for the best, but you know, when these are unknowns, it's kind of like, oh boy. And it's like, we already have a few factions right now, so why are they doing it now?
Yeah, I mean, you could even say someone like the Shield, but at least like Rollins had been Tyler Black in Ring of Honor, and
yeah,
you know, Ambrose had been Moxley before that. So obviously Reigns was kind of a, you know, they were hoping he would be a huge star, but you know, he has that Samoan heritage and stuff like that, so at least he had that behind him. But those guys the other two guys had been established. So I mean, you know, like I said, Dion's the only person that's even been on TV in the last year out of those guys. So you're really taking a shot in the dark and hoping that something like that would help. So
yeah, and they were building him like as a smart guy character kind of thing.
Yeah.
So you know, kind of, it seems weird. I don't know.
But the little you know, the gimmicks of it and stuff like that have been seeming like they're going to show up at Vengeance Day. So
yeah, and see when they show up. That's another story. Like when on the show they will show up. All right, so the last thing before we get to the Vengeance Day preview, let's just going to go through some notables who have not been on camera for a while. I call this, first we'll start with Thea. Thea, I heard, has been off, and she actually had recently returned at an NXT house show circuit. So not sure where they're going to go with her. They may just throw her out there as like the rabid, you know, kind of ADHD kid, Thea Hale that she is. So we'll see about that. But then these three, I call them the interchangeable blondes, because you know, you casual fans wouldn't be able to tell Brinley Reese, Carly Bright, and Kendall Gray apart. They were starting to do kind of things here with the three of them, but I don't know. I mean, maybe because Nikita's back, a few other girls are being featured more. These three who, again, don't really have, outside of Brinley, don't really have much in terms of character. Them. So I don't understand why they've been off. Your favorite tag team, Adelphi and Blade, haven't been featured, and they're really like more like the jobber team anyway. We mentioned Riley Osborne earlier. Obviously, they're going to repackage him somehow, hopefully. You know, even though his significant other was part of the releases, Blair Davenport.
That's right. I forgot they were together. Yeah. That's right.
Wendy Chu hasn't been featured as much lately, and I'm kind of like, I have mixed feelings on it because I think she's talented, but I hated the kind of sleepy one, but I kind of like the darker side of it, but I still don't like the sleepy part of it kind of thing. Her wrestling with like, slippers on and in like pajamas or whatever the heck she wears, onesie. I don't know. And then I put Stevie Turner down because I want to see her back in the ring. I think she's doing fine as whatever she's doing with Robert Stone as like the assistant GMs or something. Yeah. But any thoughts on any of these? If we think we'll see them back on TV soon or in the ring soon in Stevie's case.
Yeah, I mean, I even feel like Stevie and Mr. Stone haven't been used as much lately in the Ava stuff. I feel like Ava's kind of been on her own since the last little while. So I'm not even sure that that's much of a thing anymore either. But yeah, Thea's probably the one that stands out to me the most. I think she was pretty established. She's had quite a few NXT women's title shots, depending on when who the champion was when it happened. She faced Tiffany when she was champion. She faced Roxanne a couple of times when she was champion. So I mean, she seems to be the one that's kind of the one that would stand out. That like, why is she not on TV? They've had the big influx with talent, getting Julia, getting Zarya, getting Stephanie. So some people are going to fall by the wayside. So like the Brinleys and the Carlys and the Kendalls just don't have there's just not enough spots for everybody, So they're the type of girls that may fall by the wayside. But Thea is somebody that I think deserves to be kind of featured, and maybe she was hurt. Maybe they just wanted to kind of rehab and come up with a new character after the Chase U split, and that's the same thing for Riley. Maybe they just wanted to kind of come up with a new idea for him and her going forward. But yeah, and as far as Wendy, yeah, they've done quite a few stop and starts with her. They kind of teamed her up with Rosemary on TNA for a little bit, and then obviously that partnership ended, and Rosemary kind of went on her own again. So maybe just trying to figure out something with her as well. It's just maybe they'll go away from the sleepy gimmick and go to something else. But yeah, Thea out of that group and Riley are the ones that kind of stand out to me.
Yeah, I mean, some of them have been on TNA actually more recently than they've been on NXT television. I think Carly Bright or Kendall Gray, I think, might have wrestled over there. So, but again, if you're not watching that stuff and you're not going like on the YouTube channel or whatever, you're not aware of it. So
yeah, true.
Okay, so finally we're getting to our Vengeance Day preview, which is the next NXT PLE. Do you know where it's emanating from?
I do not. I will look it up real quick while you.
Okay. So we have a pretty stacked card. We got 6 matches right now announced. Who knows if they add something based on anything that happened this week on TV. But we are going to go from the bottom up on the sheet. That's just directions for us. Those of you playing along at home, hopefully you have your version of the home game. All right, so
it's in DC, by the way.
Okay, it's in Washington DC. Okay, awesome. So first up, we're going to start with a match that was just recently, announced, signed, what have you. It is a strap match with Trick Williams versus Eddie Thorpe. Eddie Thorpe, guy I've been kind of down on because, again, Tatanka 2.0 or a DJ, and now he's kind of just an angry guy, I guess, who just thinks he should be in the title scene. This is interesting for me though, because Trick is ending his NXT run soon. Does it end here? Does he go out? Look, a strap match. That's are they going to do the traditional like grabbing the 4 corners thing, or are they just going to be a match and they're strapped together? I mean, I think it can be both ways, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I think with the gimmick there, it protects Trick in a loss. So if Trick is going to go up to the main roster now, I think he loses here. If he's going to stay till Stand and Deliver, I think he wins. I mean, Eddie Thorpe. I mean, is he a guy? You just established him as a heel. You just put him up in in the topper part of the card? Do you want him to job out in this big match? I don't know. So it all kind of depends on where Trick is going to be in the next few months. So, but if I had to say anybody, I'm actually going to go Eddie Thorpe. I think Trick doesn't need the win, but Eddie does, and Trick is going to be on his way very soon.
Yeah, and they could do something goofy to have somebody come out and interfere and help Thorpe win or something like that.
It leads to not a clean finish.
Yeah, and they could do the corner gimmick, and that obviously, like you said, could open a way that Eddie could win without having to pin Trick or anything like that. So I think Trick probably sticks around until Stand and Deliver. I'm with you. I think they probably do the corner gimmick, or like I said, somebody comes out and maybe Thorpe is the leader of this new group that they're coming out with. Hopefully not, but he could be the established guy that's kind of at the top of that. But yeah, I think Thorpe probably wins. I think they probably do the corner touch gimmick, and that they can do that to kind of have him win without winning, really. Yeah. But yeah, I think Trick probably stays around until Stand and Deliver for at least one more match. So, and then he kind of goes up after that. But yeah, I'll go with Eddie.
All right. Next is I guess we'll call it a grudge match. Javon Evans wrestling against Dr. Zora, so I guess it's an unsanctioned match, I guess if you want to call it, versus All Ego Ethan Page. I think Ethan Page needs the win here. Yes. I think Javon is one of those guys. He's so damn young. It's funny, I come off like a worried dad when I talk about Javon sometimes, because I see him, I'm like, this kid's got to be careful, because how many times has he almost pulled a what happened to JD McDonough a couple weeks ago? Yeah. He's come close to doing that several times.
Yep.
I think the kid has got a ton of potential. He's impressive in the ring. I think he, is pretty crisp and clean for somebody at his age. I think the talking needs to get a little bit better, but Ethan Page needs this, especially now with another, alpha male entering the picture in the NXT with Ricky Starks. Mm-hmm. So I think Ethan Page, I think he needs this win. So I'm going to go Ethan. What do you think, Logan?
Come on, Andy, you don't like that Javon is bouncy?
Bouncy? The young OG? It's fine for a guy his age. It's not that I don't like him. I just, he makes me nervous. But I think Ethan, if Ethan Page is going to be one of your top guys.
No, you're right.
He needs to have some more wins.
No, yeah. He definitely he hadn't won an PLE in a while, so yeah, he definitely needs to win here. I was just screwing with you, but
I know you are.
But yeah, Javon definitely has plenty of time to establish himself later. But Page needs a big win on a big stage here, so I definitely would go with him.
All right. Our next match for the NXT Women's North American title, Fallon Henley defending against Stephanie Verker. So I will let you go first this time.
Yeah, I was kind of weirded out by the idea that she was going to be the number one contender for this belt at all at any point. She obviously won a fatal four-way a few weeks, like a month or so ago, to win it in the first place, and then she lost it to Shotzi. Shotzi got the shot, and then Shotzi didn't win the title. So I kind of don't see her winning. I'd hate to see her ever take a loss. Especially since she lost to Shotzi, like I was talking about a few weeks ago. But I do think Fallon comes away with the title here, whether it's by interference or whatever. Because I think we're honestly going to get at Stand and Deliver, we'll get Julia versus Stephanie. So I don't know how they'll do it. If it's just interference or maybe they go in as champion versus champion. We'll see. But I would go with Fallon by some nefarious way.
Yeah, I think, I'm going Stephanie on this because, like you said, I think Stand and Deliver is going to be champion versus champion. I don't think both belts will be on the line.
Yeah.
But unless they want to have another Fakakta tournament for the North American title, because whoever wins probably would drop that one and keep the women's title. I just think they built up Stephanie so much. I can't see her losing here because, they both – I think they want both women to be champions for now. So
yeah, that can make sense.
I think they want to, they obviously these are the two women they're getting behind more than the others right now. They were huge signings. They were kind of FUs to AEW because Stephanie Bricker, we all thought she was going to sign there because she wrestled Mercedes on that Forbidden Door, right?
Forbidden Door, yeah. Mm-hmm.
But I guess she chose to come here for whatever reasons, and Julia, they had been working on that for a long time, and I think Julia is close to I think she's close friends with Kairi Sane, I think, or Asuka. Look, so is Mina Shirakawa, who is somebody I would die to get come in here. I love Mina Shirakawa, so we could have talked about her earlier. I would love for her to come in as well. But yeah, I just think Stephanie is too big to lose here. Fallon has been great, and she deserves to have had a title run. Do I think she's ready for the main roster? I don't think there's much more she can do after this. I mean, like I've said many times, I think everybody is going to be a face and a heel at least once, so they could see which works better for them. I think she has been surprisingly better as a heel than I thought she would be.
Yeah.
Because she was getting very bland or vanilla, like, as a baby face. So really freshened her up. I do think she looks a little like it's like a combination between Cruella de Vil and Demi Moore from the Charlie's Angels sequel with that coat that she wears. But I think Stephanie wins, and then we see her and Julia kind of going in, champion versus champion at Stand Deliver. I think that could be the biggest women's match we've had in a long time.
Yeah, and I mean, you could always do like a triple threat and throw like a Jordan Grace in there, so the other title doesn't have to be on the line either. So
that's interesting.
You could have Jordan win and be NXT Women's Champion or whatever, and the North American title is not even on the line. So there's definitely a way you could work around it. And not have both belts be on the line.
All right. So our next match, NXT Tag Team Title match, Fraxium defending against Josh Briggs and Yoshiki Inamura. My son has been a real big fan of both Briggs, and now he likes this tag team he's in with Inamura. I don't know. Part of me says they take the belts from Fraxium. Now, you introduced the whole idea of the North, which I like. But, again, Fraxium is kind of like in the trick area. It's like, what else? They've been, tremendous champions. They're a great team. But I think getting them up to the main roster, especially putting them on SmackDown and having matches with DIY, with Motor City Machine Guns, with Los Garza, with Pretty Deadly. I mean, I think those are teams that they would mix really well with. So that's part of maybe me thinking they may lose the belts here. So I'm going to go with the upset. I'm going to go with Briggs and Inamura. What do you?
Yeah, I've liked their stuff so far. I like their chemistry in the backstage, and Briggs is another one of those guys like Duke that's like a really good tag guy, really good hot tag. So even pairing them together would have been a good idea, kind of like you threw out earlier. But Inamura seems to fit pretty well with Briggs. I mean, I could see them pulling the trigger here, but I'm just more of like, I'm more of a guy that like do it on the big show. That's around WrestleMania season. If you're going to do the title change and put over a new team. So maybe they lose here and get another shot at Stand and Deliver, or the whole North thing happens and they have that match at Stand and Deliver. But I would maybe hold off at least the next big PLE for them to do that. So I'll pick Fraxium here.
All right. So for the NXT Women's title, we have a fatal four-way now as established this week on NXT TV with Julia, the champion, defending against Roxanne Perez, Bayley, and Cora Jade. So Logan, you will go first this time.
Yeah, if somebody else outside of Julia wins this, I could see maybe them giving it to Cora. She's been an established star for a long time. And I think she's kind of the one on the rise. Obviously, Roxanne had the establishment in the Royal Rumble, being the runner-up, getting the longevity record. She's had this thing with Bayley. Obviously, Bayley's coming down to have this big match to add a little bit of star power to it. But obviously, I think Roxanne's main roster bound. She may even have a Mania match. Bayley, obviously, as an established main roster star, is not going to stay around for a long time. So Julia, I think, is definitely going to retain here. But if somebody else won, I would pick Cora, just because I think she has some more time in NXT, and I think she may have a title run eventually.
Yeah, I agree. I think Cora needs to be there without Roxanne, kind of overshadowing her, even though they're kind of like together. They were friends, then they were enemies, now they're friends again. Look, Roxanne has a Elimination Chamber qualifying match on Raw next week. So she's all but said and done with NXT. I think this is her swan song. This is her final NXT match, I think, because I think she's going to qualify for the Elimination Chamber, unless they're going to do something for cock and put, Raquel Rodriguez in there in the Elimination Chamber to. Sorry, she's just been botching left and right lately. She put her in there to kind of like protect Liv inside the chamber, which I think would be a dumb idea. Like, again, talk about wasting a spot. So I think Roxanne's going to get into the Elimination Chamber. So I think that this is her last NXT match proper. She may come down there, appear later on at times in her WWE run. But yeah, I think she's done. Bayley doesn't need it. Bayley's just there. I think Bayley's there to bridge Roxanne to the main roster. Mm-hmm. Kind of like not, because it's not like an official call up. It's not this. It's not that. It's the transfer window, whatever the hell they want to call it. This is her feud with Bayley, and it's carrying over to the main roster, and she's just establishing herself with, being the record breaker longevity wise and all, being, I mean, is she younger than Tiffany was in the Elimination Chamber? I don't know if so she could set that record. I mean, I think she'll have a good showing in the Elimination Chamber as well. I think I would hold her off, though. I wouldn't leave her in there too long to get the crap kicked out of her. I would probably have her be in the one of the pods and come out like either last or next to last, I think, although she does have the stamina to go, bell to bell. Cora, like I totally agree with you. Cora is the only one I could see possibly taking this. I mean, they could do a thing where they protect Julia and have Cora pin Bayley or Roxanne even. So where Julia loses the title but doesn't lose the match, and then she has that going for her. Maybe she regains it from Cora before Stand and Deliver. Possibly, who knows? But I mean, if I have to put money, I'm going to say it's Julia's going to take this match.
Absolutely.
All right. And then to the final match so far announced for Vengeance Day. In a NXT title match, there is a triple threat. Oba Femi is defending against Austin Theory and Grayson Waller, a.k.a. A-Town Down Under. I can't see Oba losing this match.
Definitely not.
I mean, if they were still active NXT guys, I would like to see Waller maybe get a run with it. But I just think that, I don't know. You don't. I don't know where they would go from there if Theory or Waller were to win. I mean, obviously they would feud with the other one, because for one of them to win, the other one has to kind of like turn on the other, or dupe the other or something. So I think we're gonna get a split up anyway between these guys. Mm-hmm. But I think Oba just takes them out, and I think it's gonna be a fun match. But I can't see Oba losing to one of these guys. What do you think?
Yeah, if Cora Jade has like a 5% chance of winning that match, like Theory and Waller have like a 1% chance of winning this one. So, Oba, this is just a spot to put Oba in there with two established main roster guys, two guys that have been in NXT, have been a big part of NXT before, and just get a big win for him over two current main roster guys. And probably get a good match out of them, because both guys are talented, and they're guys that Oba can kind of throw around and do some of his really good power moves against. So just another establishment of his title reign. And they made a big deal about when Oba and Julia both won their titles on the New Year's Evil show. They made a big deal about, it being a new era. So it's going to be a big deal when they lose their titles. So, if Julia loses to Stephanie or Jordan Grace or whoever it is, and Oba eventually loses to somebody, it's going to be a big deal. It's going to be on a big show. It's going to be a bigger thing. So with Thin and Deliver kind of in the immediate future, I don't see either of them losing on a show like this, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, totally agree with you. I think if there's going to be at least one title change. I think I think the women's North American title will change hands and possibly a tag title match. If either of those happen or both happen, I can't see the two top belts changing hands, either of them. So
I agree.
But it looks like a solid show. I may or may not be able to watch it live. Depends on the weather here in the Northeast, because we've been having a bit of snow here and there, and there is snow in the forecast. So any kind of weekend plans I have may be derailed for Saturday. So I may be home watching it. If not, I will definitely watch it the next day. Okay, well, that's going to bring an end to this episode. We are going to try to be back fairly regularly. I know it looks like, maybe every 4 to 6 weeks. The format, will change at times. We may do breakdowns. We may just do something like this where we talk about goings-ons and catching up on storylines and previewing or recapping a PLE. So we're trying to be somewhat fluid here with how we roll. So Logan, you got a lot going on, a lot more than I do at the moment. So why don't you tell everybody what's going on with you in terms of, I believe you just had a latest episode drop on the North-South connection. You have lots of shows dropping over there on the Backbone Wrestling Network. So kind of give everybody what's been going on with you lately and where they can find you.
Yeah, the North-South connection, we just had the latest episode of Talking Docs drop. We did the Yacht Rock documentary.
Still have to watch that.
It's really good. You should definitely check it out. But that'll finish our music season. We'll be moving on to a new season of a different category of documentaries going forward on the next episode. We haven't really established that. We may have talked about it a little bit after we recorded, but we haven't really settled on anything yet. So definitely look forward to seeing whatever we go into that next. As far as the Backbone Wrestling Network, we have a ton of shows over there. I am on most of them. With Sean being on his hiatus currently, we are missing some of his shows, but everything that he did is on the back catalog. But we have Highway to the Impact Zone, we have Linking Up Luchas, we have YouTube Roulette, the Cross Up you mentioned a couple of times. I do that every week. So Ruthlessly Aggressive should probably be coming back pretty soon. Jake he's moving into a new house, so he had to deal with that and all the paperwork and all the BS that goes into selling and buying a house. So we had to take a little bit of a hiatus on that one, but just check out everything over there. Everybody's doing a ton of good work. I also do the most miserable pod I've ever done, which is Are You Smarter Than Vince Russo's WCW, which is we're almost to the Starrcade 99 show, so definitely continue to check everything out over there. And you can find me at Highway Backbone on Twitter.
All right, very good. So as for me, my primary home is on the PlayStation Nation Pop Experience. We do have a YouTube channel that has launched since our last episode of this one. So right now it is we're kind of putting up the back catalog, similar to how you all should be subscribing to the PlayStation Nation Wrestling Network YouTube channel, as well as the Backbone Wrestling Network channel and the North-South Connection YouTube channel. So I'm Pop right now on the YouTube channel. Right now we're going through the back catalog, kind of getting some series up there. Pop Goes the Classics, Totally Rank, the Muppet Pod, Making Mount Rushmore. We're kind of putting the older episodes as we kind of build up the library up on there, and then we're going to actually go back a little further to some of the older shows that were on that feed. But please go and like and listen over there if that's your preferred way of listening to podcasts. Eventually, we will get to a point where the pods on the Podbean, on the Apple Podcast, wherever you listen to, should be going up around at the same time as they go up on the YouTube channel. We may look also to do some YouTube stuff, where we're doing with video components to it, but that might not be for a little while. As for a lot of my shows, kind of on a little bit of a hiatus myself with some of my shows, kind of going to do a lot more backstage stuff. In other words, like kind of prep and get things ready for seasons to return of some of my other shows that were quite a bit of work. So I think if I do the work now, it'll be much easier when the shows come back. But Laugh-In Theater, Blockbuster Rewatch, the Pixar Rewatch series, Cartoons of Our Youth may pop up here and there. But right now, I'm pretty much focusing on the Video Jukebox on the Day, which is a pod blast that drops every weekday at 8 a.m. Right now, it's just me and Steve Riddle, kind of alternating on those. Every other week is a theme week. And also the Pop Goes the Classics, the Disney series that we're doing, me, myself, Miranda Berthel, and Steve Riddle. Our latest episode, we just dropped Winnie the Pooh from 2011. Kind of as much as we all love Winnie the Pooh, we kind of did not be as favorable on that movie, because it was kind of like, why did it happen kind of thing. But our next one, really looking forward to, which is going to be Wreck-It Ralph, and after that will be Frozen. So we have quite the run coming up with if you kind of compare it to another era, the run we're going into is very similar to the Renaissance era of like Little Mermaid, Aladdin, Beauty and the Beast, and Lion King. So stay tuned for that. And Miranda and I also are going to get back to the Muppet Pod. The time difference is kind of hard sometimes for us to get our recording schedule up, but we are still trying. All right, and like I said, check out everything else going on here on the PlayStation Wrestling Network and over on the North-South Connection. Lots of great stuff. YouTube stuff that they have that just goes up there with Ryan Gray and Tim Taylor. Do a lot of stuff exclusive to their YouTube channel. They have some projects going on. They just announced their big No So 95, which is a look back at everything going on in pop culture, sports, music, movies, TV, news, everything going on, and celebrating that year that a lot of stuff happened 30 years ago. Logan may or may not have been alive in 1995.
Barely, but yes, I was.
Barely alive. I was of legal drinking age. Okay?
Depending on the time of year, I was too.
Oh, God. I gotta tell you guys, I'm not gonna say you guys make me feel old. You keep me young and exuberant.
With snappers and
technologies and. Yeah. Well, my nickname for Schiff is Zygote, so.
God.
Anyway, so on that note, that's going to bring it into this episode of Who's Next. So for Logan Crosland, I am Andy Allergen. Thank you for joining us. Hope you enjoyed Vengeance Day, and we'll be back sooner than later. So we'll see you then.